Welcome to RTF Sports Talk, joined by Michael Bucknasty III and Billy Grant Hefe Hatton. How we doing today, gentlemen?
Doing all right. Tuesday morning. It's another old Tuesday, getting closer to Christmas.
Yeah, speaking of
days.
Yeah, speaking of Christmas, Merry Christmas to all you fine gentlemen on the other side of the line.
Yes. Coming up on my son's birthday as well on Friday, so
there we go. Happy
Christmas
birthday.
season is going to be a wild one.
Mike saying that as if we're not going to talk or do another show over the next week. Way to go, Mike.
I believe it's middle of like Kwanzaa, so happy Kwanzaa or something like that too.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We ready to dive into today's show?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's get it. Last night on a Monday Night Football, the Saints outlasted the Panthers 12-9. Give me some takeaways from this game, Hefe.
This was a pretty boring game actually to me, and I don't think it was boring just because there was really no points being scored. It was boring because it was just three and out. Oh, we make a mistake here. Oh, we're just gonna go punt the football. You know, Drew Brees and Cam both threw interceptions. I really don't know what has happened over these last 3 games for the Saints, but they're only averaging 17 points. In their first 11, they was averaging almost 37 points per game. I don't know what happened to their offense, but good news is their defense have picked up in their last 4 games. The most points that they've allowed is 17 points, and that was to the Buccaneers, who they blew out 31-17. So I guess as a consolation prize, we know that offense can get hyped or they can get going at any time. The good news is that the defense is back to playing at a level that they were at last year. I'm guessing they're starting to settle down now. Another 9 points last night for that defense to bolster that up. But that's pretty much what I saw. I saw the better team outlast the team that was kind of desperate, but talent always takes over. So that's mainly what I seen yesterday. Christian McCaffrey and Cam Newton are the only 2 guys they got that showed again last night. They're going to have to get that fixed in the offseason.
Yeah, and I got to echo everything that like you said, like on the Saints side of things. But on the Carolina side of things, my takeaway is Cam might be more injured than we first thought. We saw late in that fourth quarter, he was struggling to throw the ball 10 to 12 yards. He was hurting like he just wasn't the Cam Newton that we got accustomed to seeing in like years past. And then also a question kind of came to my mind. Has Cam Newton reached his peak? Is the best Cam Newton that we've seen just like in the past 2? And I'm gonna have to say yes on that one. I think Cam has hit his peak, and he's starting to come on the decline now a little bit.
Well, my takeaway from this entire thing, and I'm going to go back over a decade when I saw one of the most prolific offenses of all time, when at least in my life, or especially up to that point, was the 2007 Patriots. They came out the gate putting 50 on everybody, but then once they got to week 15, 16, and 17, they were winning games 14-13, 13-10, 13-7. And as much as the NFL has tried to put in rules and implement laws and rules that will make offenses more productive, I think they still have to find a way to get over a couple things, such as fatigue, such as depth, such as
defense wins championships, son.
I mean, it does, and they're trying to get away from it. That mantra is not going to last for too many more years. But the NFL still has to find a way. Example, go back to that Chiefs-Chargers game.
Yeah,
Tyreek Hill. I mean, there was players who balled out. There was the offense that game. But Tyreek Hill, for all intent and purposes, was held in check. And as long as you have thousands of hours of film to watch, the defense is going to be level because the offense is the action, the defense is the reaction. Action you have to get creative with. Reaction is always going to be the same. So what you allow is 15 weeks of defenses to learn how to react. And I think that's what we're seeing here. Some of these big, high-powered offenses, when they play, defenses are knowing how to react. Defenses are knowing how to cover Kamara. Defenses are know how to cover Michael Thomas. And defenses know how to cover Tyreek Hill to a point. I'm not saying they can shut them down, they can lock them out. but I think you can game plan against it a little better. I mean, you look at some of the big name receivers, none of them really jumped off the paper. Whether you go to Juju Smith-Schuster, Antonio Brown, I mean, obviously Keenan Allen got hurt. I mean, Hopkins did have a big game, but I mean, that kid's just special. I mean, just look across the board on fantasy. You didn't get a lot of production from your big names. And I think that's a factor of fatigue setting in. It's also something you got to take into consideration that guys, the defenses are knowing how to react against these guys. The good teams, the teams that are going to hold up the Lombardi at the end of the year, are teams that are going to find a way to make guys who haven't been productive all year be productive late.
I just want to touch on one thing because, Mike, I heard you say that you think Cam Newton has reached his peak, and I honestly don't believe that. I mean, this year he's still completing the best percentage that he's has in his whole career at 69%. So for me, I don't see it that way. The best weapon that they've gotten him was a rookie Kelvin Benjamin, because right after his second year, I believe that's when he tore his ACL in the offseason going into his third year, and they kind of traded him away after that. So for me, he hasn't had a Davante Adams. He hasn't had a Randy Moss or a Gronkowski. I know Greg Olsen is nice, but he hasn't, or Aaron Hernandez. He hasn't had what a lot of these great receivers get, a Big Ben with Antonio Brown, an Eli with an Odell Beckham, the litany of sorry quarterbacks that the Texans have had, and now, DeAndre Hopkins get Deshaun Watson. So for me, I just think they never really got him any elite talent. Funches is not going to do it, So for me, I think if they get him a big time weapon, a guy that can do it, I think we'll see a different Cam. Right now, he's throwing to a bunch of has-beens. Curtis Samuels and DJ Walker, who's a rookie, and Devin Funches. Greg Olsen has been in and out of the lineup for the last 2 or 3 years. So for me, they just haven't gave him the weapons.
Well, I think, Billy, and even though it's going to sound like I'm disagreeing with your point, I'm not. I'm just clarifying. And I think me and you see a lot of this, and I think Mike does this a lot to poke buttons. But a lot of the sports fans, they want like one-word answers, one-word statements, and it's not that simple. So do I think Cam Newton has reached his peak? I mean, in theory, yes, I think that he's playing, but I don't think he's on the decline. I think he's doing good. Like, he's at the top of his talent. Now it's on the Carolina Panthers, to your point, Billy, to make that talent get the bang for the buck. I think, because humans can only get so good at certain things. I mean, people can only jump so high, shoot so far, throw the ball so good. But now it's on the Carolina Panthers to give him an offensive line that's going to give him time to show off that cannon. It's on the Carolina Panthers to give him wide receivers that are going to catch those passes. Once you stop doing that, it's going to look like he's declining, but it really isn't. It's just him not having the weapons to fully show and display his skill. And I think you can go, I got into a lot of debates. And now, look, I do know, to make this personal, or at least my fan, I do think Tom Brady is getting older. I mean, that's facts. But if you look at that game against the Steelers, a lot of the bad passes he made came after the offensive line put him in a bad situation, whether it be a false start, a hold, allowing a sack, or allowing pressure. So I think, to Mike's point, Cam Newton has reached his peak. I think Cam Newton's as good as he's going to be from his own individual standpoint, which is a good place to be. It's now on his organization to get the most out of that, to allow that to produce. And it can go as far as getting a solid defense to allow him to rest. Getting him a solid game where it's not just everything centered around McCaffrey. So, I mean, I think I can agree with both your points, but I got to side with Billy on this one. I don't think this is a decline of Cam Newton. Cam Newton is at his peak. We just got to get more from the Panthers to see more from Cam Newton.
Agreed.
All right, guys. Well, with that, we're going to talk a little bit about what else went on in the NFL. I know I missed the show yesterday where it was recap of the NFL, but I want to ask one question to you guys. Every team, except for the Saints, but they struggled. Every team in the top 2 of each conference lost, except for the Saints. The Chiefs lost, the Patriots lost, the Rams lost. At this point, if you had to pick a Super Bowl champion, would you pick those 4 or any other possible team? Mike.
We kind of touched on this yesterday, and I'm gonna have to go with any other team. I really like what the Chargers are doing as of now. They are a very solid team. They are a very hungry team, and I will take any other team besides those four, simply because I like what the Chargers are doing. The Texans, like if they happen to get hot at the time and they peak right as the start of the playoffs, they are going to be a very dangerous team. And you also have to look at for those teams sneaking into the playoffs, such as the Steelers, such as the Seahawks, even possibly even the Eagles if they sneak in there. There are these teams that are really, really hungry that are sneaking that might sneak into the playoffs. So give me anybody else.
So which was
Billy.
your four teams? I didn't catch your four teams.
The four teams that coming into the week were considered the 4 bye week teams. The top 2 seeds on each side. The Chiefs lost to the Chargers.
Yep.
The Patriots lost to the Steelers. And then on the NFC side, you had the Saints hold on to a close win versus the Panthers. And then you had the Rams lose to the Eagles. Those have been, I think, if you asked anybody throughout the season, those are
The four
probably
favorites.
4 of the favorites.
Yeah.
At this
Okay.
point, are you still holding on to the 4 favorites, or are you going to venture outside and get one of the other teams?
Okay, I wanted to make sure I heard you right because I thought you were excluding the Saints because they were the ones that won. Okay, I
No,
just
but
wanted
they
to make
still
sure you
struggled.
was leaving them in there. Okay,
Right, yeah.
That's why, because I'm still going to take the Saints. That's why I wanted to know. I'm still going to take those 4. I mean, you think about it. You have Saints, championship pedigree, and Sean Payton and Drew Brees. You know, they outduel Peyton Manning them, and then you got Tom Brady. I mean, we do this every year. You know, has he fallen off a cliff? Yes, I think he has. I think he's taken a step back, but he's still Tom Brady. You know, that still is Bill Belichick, and you got one of the hottest, another one of the hottest offense in football that can get hot in a heartbeat with, Patrick Mahomes and the crew. And then you're going to give me the team that I picked, the team that I thought would probably be as good as they are now in the Chargers. Yeah, give me. I mean, I'm sorry, not the Chargers. The Chargers are not in there. Give me those 4 over the field. I think one of those 4 win.
I'm right there with you. I don't think you can convince me something of the other teams that are hanging on that I couldn't give you the same debate about one of the 4 teams remaining. With that being said, Mike brought up what's up?
How can you not root for the Bears? I mean, because the Bears have shown that they are a very dominant team. They shut down the Rams. They can probably shut down the Saints. And you see these offenses that were high, that have been high flying all year. They are starting to be average now.
If you have to go to Chicago, but you're not going to have to go to Chicago. So
I don't care if you are playing at home. That Bears defense is solid. And
so you're telling me that they would.
Plays.
So you're telling me that they will hold the Los Angeles Rams in LA to 6 points?
On a beautiful sunny day?
Under 14, yes.
That's
at home.
At home.
Yeah.
Drew Brees in the dome would do some damage against that.
Yeah.
So the Saints have been averaging 17 points in the last
3 games. They was averaging 37 in the first 11.
But
they can get hot.
They can for one game.
They did it for 11 games.
They did it for like 11 games because the season was still young. We are all mature now. This is a mature season, and the real teams are going to start to show.
But Mike, if you look at the Bears' record, I'm gonna let you jump in. I just want to say this, Matthew.
Okay.
The best team they beat so far was these Rams.
Okay.
They lost to the Giants. They beat the Packers, and we don't think that they're good this year. They beat the Lions. They beat the Minnesota Vikings, who's been a disappointment. They beat the Lions again. They beat the Bears.
Some teams
they lost to the Patriots.
Just match up better against other teams.
Well, let me just give you this. Let me tell you what the Saints have done at home point wise: 40, 21, 43, 45, 48. Let me go back down, and that was the last home game they had, or 31 versus the Falcons. If that's what the Saints are doing in their dome, the Bears can't compete with that.
Well, but you also have to look at the teams they're putting those up against.
It don't matter. I mean, do you want to go look at the Bears have done in the dome? We can go there, and I guarantee you're not going to be impressed.
I could just tell you the teams that the Saints were playing at home. They were playing the Buccaneers at home. horrible offense.
The Bears have only put up more than 40 points one time, and that was against the Buccaneers.
Because they don't have to, because their defense is so great.
I'm just telling. I'm looking at the Bears gave up 17. The Bears gave up 27. The Bears gave up 16, 20, 22. You do that to the Saints, it's not going to good. It's not a good look for you. You're going to struggle. You get the Saints scoring 14, 21 points and a half. The Bears cannot come back from that. Their offense, their defense is going. Their defense needs you to be down and trying to pass and be aggressive.
If you have the Bears Saints NFC Championship game, the Bears will win that NFC Championship game.
That's absurd.
And Mike, and you also have to realize the Saints over these last 3 games have all been on the road.
Yeah,
been on the road.
Right.
So we're talking about when they go home, their last 2 home games was 31 and 48.
Well, we will see. What is it? Sunday afternoon when they play the Steelers team.
Oh, that's not how you even.
I guess that's a juggernaut. I guess now
the Steelers defense is atrocious.
Yeah, like exactly. So we will see if that offense can't even put up some points.
All right. Well, we're going to move on to hopefully something to keep Mike a little more sane. So, the Eagles beat the Rams last night. The all-powerful Rams that apparently since the Bears beat, they're Super Bowl champions. So, we're going to follow that route. Eagles beat them. Let's just pretend for a second the Eagles win their final 2 games, and they win the Super Bowl. Let's just get crazy for a second. If Nick Foles, whose numbers show that he's a glorified backup, if Nick Foles wins another Super Bowl and gets Super Bowl MVP on it, what would his legacy be, Billy?
I think it'll be a marginal quarterback, a normal quarterback that could show up in big games. You know, I don't think we'll be talking Hall of Fame. I think his name will be right outside on the front door. I think when we talk about people that, we're going to let him in, should this person get in, I think he will be one of the names to mention, especially doing what he did last year, and then to come back and do that same thing again. I think he'll just be a normal quarterback that could win the big games. But that will also taint Carson Wentz's legacy as being a great quarterback as well. But I think Foles he'll be right on the doorstep, but never get in.
Mike,
he is going to remind me of the Ravens quarterback that they won it. What was it, like 2002?
Trent Dilfer.
Yeah, he is a above average quarterback put in a great situation, because yes, the Eagles have kind of struggled this season. They were hit by the injury bug early. You know, they were down. I think they started 0-3 or 1-3 or something to that effect. So they've had to play behind like all year, and they just so if he were to win and quote unquote lead them to another Super Bowl, he is a above average quarterback put in a great situation, kind of like Trent Dilfer and Eli Manning too.
I mean, you gave 2 completely different scenarios. Eli Manning and Trent Dilfer's careers have gone completely. Eli Manning has the numbers. Nick Foles will not. Now, I think what's going to happen is all the hot takes are going to – if he does that, all the hot takes are going to come out. But here's also what's going to come with that. Absurd amount of money to a really bad team. So let's just say Nick Foles ends up as the quarterback for, I don't know, Jacksonville and an $80 million contract. That's how you're going to know what the story's really going to tell, because this is going to be his team. He's going to be, or let's just even say that the Eagles get rid of Carson Wentz and he gets to keep this great situation Mike keeps talking about. Then the story's going to write itself, because he's going to have an entire year. And then if he comes out there and leads them to a 3rd Super Bowl and he looks like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers in their prime, then I think we start going towards the Hall of Fame conversation. If he comes out there and he looks ghastly or god-awful, then I think then our conversation goes towards what Mike's saying, that he's just going to be a has-been. Because, I mean, the kid, if you look at the most touchdown passes in the game, his name's there. If you look at Super Bowl MVP, not just Super Bowl winner, because you got to remember, Trent Dilfer didn't win no Super Bowl MVP. Eli Manning didn't win the Super Bowl MVP. Nick Foles has. So
yeah, I think Trent Dilfer was also a game manager. where Nick Foles, they're actually giving him, they're running plays for him. They're letting him air it out. Where Trent Dilfer was, listen, just don't mess it up. Just hand the ball off and give it to the defense and let us shut people out.
Like, and you guys have to know that I believe Foles was named the Eagles starter back before he was traded to the Chiefs, and then eventually back to the Rams, and then back to the Eagles. So like, he has been a starter and has proven that he cannot be a starter and, you know, be a successful over a full season. So I don't see him going anywhere if he were to win a Super Bowl.
The problem, the reason, because when it comes to NFL quarterbacks, especially one that fit a system, guys are going to look for reasons to continue to sign him. And to your point, Mike, yes, he was named a starter for the Eagles before his trip around the league. But a lot of people, if you listen to a lot of people talk about that time, they put a lot of his struggles, they put that on Chip Kelly. They say, oh, Chip Kelly didn't run an offense for him. They wanted him to run that read option. And Nick Foles isn't a read option guy. So, right. and you might be very well to the point. He may be a horrible starter. But I think when it comes time to the Raiders, to the Jacksonville Jaguars, to the Redskins to sign him to a big, gaudy deal, they're going to say, when that gets brought up and you're like, hey, you know, when he started for the Eagles the first time, he was horrible. They're going to say, oh, Chip Kelly ruined him. He had to go back and bounce back, and then Doug Peterson saved him, and now here he's great. But like I said, I think he obviously has a lot of work to do. But what I saw him against the Rams on the road, I like his chances against Texans. I like him to close out the season. And then once you get into the playoffs, anything can happen, especially if you have something, you know, some sort of defense. And not to give Mike his point earlier, I'm still not taking them as a favorite, but it's not impossible for him to carve himself a very absurd legacy.
And just to just expand on this issue or this topic a tad bit more, there were some other names that, you know, that had like these great 3 or 4 games. We have a Matt Castle. He held down the fort for a year, for that year that Tom Brady, he was hurt. The Chiefs signed him to this great deal. He was horrible. Then you had Flynn for the Packers. He came in for those 4 or 5 games for the Packers. I can't even remember where he went. Did he go to the Cardinals? Seattle. Yeah, and then, you know, he was horrible. So there are just some guys that are meant to play 4 or 5 games like a year in a backup role, and I think Nick Foles is one of those guys.
What you're missing with those two is those two never made a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they never played well in the big games. This guy is doing it on the biggest of stages.
Matt Castle didn't make the playoffs that year with the Patriots.
Yeah, they missed the playoffs at 11-5. I mean, he had a good year, but I'm just saying, and that team was already well put together. That Patriots team that he took over, that was prime Belichick.
And the closest I will give you to that point is a Joe Flacco, because Joe Flacco had that good run. But if he does it twice, that's something Joe Flacco's never been able to do. And if he does it twice, that's where I think that discussion has to come into play. Because we've seen a bunch of 5-game stretches mid-season, and we've seen
Patrick has done it.
Yeah, and we've seen the likes of what was his name, Doug Williams for the Redskins. We've seen him come in and do this for a couple games. You know, we just talked. Joe Flacco did it but for somebody to do it twice in back-to-back postseasons, I think. I mean, I don't know where you're going to put his legacy, and I think he's going to have a lot more downs to his ups. But I think he's got to go into some kind of case. I don't know what. But.
And this team, and this one would be even more special, Matt. You remember last year they had already had it locked up. You know, when he took over. This year they still fighting to get back in the playoffs. So if he takes his team from not being in the playoff picture to being in the playoff picture and then makes that run, yeah, I mean, he's more than a glorified backup. Mike, I think the guys that you were naming, they were like worst case scenarios, guys that wasn't good. Most people think that Nick Foles is really good. Maybe he's just not a everyday Hall of Fame type starter quarterback, but he's better than every guy that you named as far as these backup guys.
So, yeah. I mean, I do have to agree that he is he is a better quality quarterback than those guys, but he is just not a starter on it like any team. I don't think.
See, and I think that's where, the NFL's coming in with their own crazy flags and penalties and rules, because we're spoiled, guys. Look at what we've seen in the past decade. We've seen Aaron Rodgers get to some things he's done. We've seen Drew Brees win a Super Bowl and then revitalize his career. We've seen Ben. We've seen Phillip Rivers. We've seen Tom Brady. Tom Brady literally had 2 careers. He had everything 2000. He had 2000 to 2008, and then he had 2010 till 2018. Look at everybody else. Like you say, Nick Foles isn't a starter. Nick Foles isn't those guys. But let's look at every other starter in the league. I would have to put Nick Foles is in there, and I think we've been spoiled by the outlier opposed to we've been spoiled by the exception instead of the rule. And the rule is that if you're a starting quarterback, you're probably not that good unless you're one of these 5 or 6 guys.
So you said he could start on other teams. So what teams could he start on now and be successful?
Well, let me just run through. I think Bills, Jets, Dolphins, Jacksonville. I was just kind of keep a division because there's going to be a lot of them. And pretty much any team that does Bills, Jets,
Giants.
Dolphins, Giants.
You guys are truly thinking that he can elevate these teams to be okay teams?
Yes.
Okay.
Mike, do you know these guys' quarterback situation? These teams that we're naming off is not teams that's in the playoffs that's good to go, Mike. We're talking about trash teams, Mike. The Jacksonville Jaguars. If you don't think that Nick Foles can come in there and do a better job than Blake Bortles, I don't know. Denver with Case Keenum, he'll be a better option than Denver.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right there, Billy. You put him in Jacksonville, you put him in Denver. Those are playoff teams.
That defense will be general. I mean, they will be energized. They'll be hyped.
You put him on. It's hard to say because of the way that it's planned out the last couple of weeks here. You put him on Dallas, they're a number 1 or 2 seed with Amari Cooper. You put him in Oakland, San Francisco, the Giants, the Jets, the Bills. They're not making the playoffs, but they're better than they are now.
I don't know about that, but okay.
I do. Just look at the horrible quarterback play that we've seen. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, I think he's not going to get a starter because he's not in that role, and teams are afraid to make that move when it comes to that position. But if he had a fresh start on all 32 teams, I would say he would be at least considered the starter, if not the starter, on 20 of them.
Okay.
All right, guys, we're going to move on here. We're going to kind of bring all this together. We've talked about something we've seen with the Panthers. We've talked some things we've seen with the Eagles. When you see these trick plays, whether it be the wide receiver throwing it, the quarterback throwing it, what do you think is more difficult and why? The non-quarterback guy throwing the ball, whether it be a receiver or a running back, or the quarterback catching these trick plays? Which job is more difficult, Billy?
I think it's the quarterback catching it. They're normally not athletic. They normally never in that situation. They catching the ball maybe 3 yards back or 5 yards back, coming soft. So to me, catching it, trying to worry about a DB or something. I think the quarterback catching it.
Mike.
And I'm on the opposite spectrum. Just with if you go from catching a ball to all the time to actually having to sit back, read the coverage, and then have a ball chucked. I think that's just harder. I think.
Well, typically, I'm truly torn on this. That's why I brought the question to both you guys. Because typically, there's not a coverage to read. There's one guy you throw it to, and that's the guy that's meant to be wide open. Now, I'm
not saying you have to read a coverage, but you have to read a 6'9", 300-pound guy running down your throat.
Well, I mean, typically these guys don't take the snap from center. Typically they're running away from him. If anybody, you're worried about the linebacker chasing you down. But I think there's little to no pressure on you to make that pass. The quarterback, though, I think he might have the easier job to do because typically he is wide open. But to Billy's point, he's not used to being out there. And when you get to that point, that means the trick play is 80% successful. Now it comes to your job of catching the ball. And let me tell you, there's not more up there with a free throw and a penalty kick. There's not more stressful things that people think should be easy than catching a wide open pass.
Yeah.
Especially one that hangs in the air. Like
with 60,000 watching you and more on TV.
Yeah. And you know this thing 9 times out of 10 it's not going to be a like a steamer. It's going to have some air on it. It's going to sit up there in the air and go for a little while. And if you're a quarterback and you're trying to sit there especially if you're that wide open, you're going to get out there like you're trying to field a punt. It could be nerve-wracking. I think it's obviously difficult on both ends. I think one of the best I've seen was Andrew Luck on the one he caught where he went up and snagged it, even though he got like 3 yards against the Titans. Did anybody know what I'm talking about?
That play's not ringing the bell in my eyes.
I'll have to send you guys a link to it. If you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Like they had him lined up there. I think he's against Jacksonville. They have him lined up there by himself as wide receiver. The cornerback blitzes, completely leaves him. So Andrew Luck just completely turns around. It's a horrible pass. I think it actually came from Brissett. And Andrew Luck hawks the ball down. He goes up to,
he's a pretty good athlete.
Not what you want your quarterback who spent the last 2 years nursing a shoulder injury doing. But, he went up and hawked it. So I don't think it's an easy play for anybody. I was just curious on the thoughts of whose job was a little tougher. So we're going to wrap up the show here with our favorite thing we do on Tuesday, overreaction, underreaction. So we're going to start off number 1 here, overreaction, underreaction, that this college basketball season isn't as cut and dry, hand the trophy to Duke as we thought. Mike.
That is a underreaction. I think the parity in college basketball is a lot more diverse than we first thought to start the year.
I'm gonna go underreaction. I think it is cut and dry. Just give it to Duke.
Okay. It was very interesting because the only team to beat Duke was Gonzaga, and North Carolina beat Gonzaga by 20. I know you don't want to follow the transition of property. It gets pretty tough there.
And I call that, by the way.
Yeah.
All right.
We did.
Yeah. There you are. 100 points for Billy.
He just following my pick though.
Nah.
But in all fairness, he did say he did choose wrong there. He did say underreaction. That's an overreaction. What was it? I don't remember, guys. Point to Billy. We've derailed the show. That's it. Mike, tell them where they can find us. We're wrapping it up here, boys. Tell them where they can find us.
Guys, we're on iHeart Radio now, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Any place you can pretty much find a podcast streaming service, we're there. Check us out.
Mike, even though you lost the show today, you had absurd takes with thinking the Bears could win the Super Bowl. You get the rant this evening, or this morning. What you got for me?
Well, I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears.
Oh,
they can win the Super Bowl. It is the age. Yes, we like high scoring. Yes, we like offenses. But defense still wins championships. At the end of the game, at the end of the day, if you cannot stop an offense from scoring, you are going to lose. I don't care if you're in junior high, high school, college, like the NFL, etc. Defense wins championships. The Bears have a great defense right now, and they can win the Super Bowl, but they won't.
Oh, no, you know what? We're done here. Enjoy the show. Billy, I apologize. I should never give him the airtime, especially if he's going to make such a passionate statement and then end it by just negating everything he said.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for tuning in. No, you're done, Mike. Thank